Hello and welcome back to Baron's New Vegas Gun Guide, and this time we are going over the additions added by Gunrunner's Arsenal for the weapons covered so far in these guides. The Gunrunner's Arsenal was the last DLC to come out for Fallout New Vegas, releasing a week after Lonesome Road and simultaneous with the Courier's Stash, which was the DLC that combined all the pre-order bonuses. GRA, as it is abbreviated, was billed as a chance to get weapons from the Gunrunner's exclusive vault of weapons, including new uniques, new weapon types, and new weapon mods. Unlike the DLCs before it, GRA does not add any story to the game, nor does it add any world spaces. The only extra thing, besides weapons, it adds are new challenges, achievements, and exactly one perk. The DLC also claims that you will trek far and wide through the wasteland for these weapons, but due to the limitations on DLC interactions on the main game, you only have to trek to all the gun merchants in the game and check their stock, or take a journey to the nearest ammo bench to make the ammo, once you get the one perk, which is Hand Loader. Now, for what Gunrunners are, they were a gang from the hub who moved into a factory in the Boneyard about 50 years after the Great War, which was before Fallout 1. It is not known when they switched over exclusively to arms dealing, but it was soon after they arrived to the Boneyard. Luckily for them, the factory that they settled in had pre-war weapon design documents and the machines needed to create them. Using the scrap from around the factory, they barely even had to move out of it to keep making guns for 20 years. After that, they had to start importing scrap from the local area and finally took the name Gunrunners. And 4 years after that, in 2155. But 3 years after, the regulators shut up shop and around the Boneyard and started to put the squeeze on their profits. Luckily, the Vault Dweller helped them leave the LA Boneyard, and they diversified their factories, becoming the most influential merchant guild in the NCR and gaining more knowledge and more weapons as the NCR spread. Now, this video will cover the GRA additions to the Hunting Revolver, the 12.7mm SMG, the unique 10mm SMG, and the unique 12.7mm pistol. In addition, it will cover the new ammo types for the 9mm weapons, 12.7mm weapons, and the 20 and 12 gauge shotguns. Now, starting with the modified weapons, which sadly didn't make it into the video proper due to the fact that their models were bugged with the mods I have, the first thing you need to know is that there are additional variants for the guns, which is why they broke. The Hunting Revolver and the 12.7mm SMG have guns that are suffixed with the GRA in parentheses, and you can only use the GRA-specific weapon mods on those GRA-specific weapons. They can only be bought and cannot be found for the very same reason of DLC interaction. Now, starting with the Hunting Revolver, the GRA version is no different stat-wise, costing the same 3,500 base caps, but again, has to be bought. It can be bought from Gunrunners, obviously, as well as Alexander at the 188 trading post, if you can pass his gun requirement speech check. The mods it adds are quite unique from what we have seen so far. Instead of a laser sight, the Hunting Revolver gets what's called a match barrel, to drop the spread, this time by 0.15, which takes it from 0.35 to 0.2. It does help make long range viable for follow-up shots, but it's a hefty cost at 1,400 caps. The second and final mod for it is the 6-shot cylinder, which as it sounds turns the 5-shot cylinder to 6 shots, which increases its sustained DPS by about 16% as the reloading time does not change. It really is a small bonus, as with the other mod, it really makes it a long-range pistol, so the expanded cylinder is only a marginal boon since you're at longer range. It costs 1,100 caps, so if you have the money to spare, it might be worth it for you. There was a third mod planned that would have changed it, and it was a scope modification, but it was cut. It seems, from what we have in the game files, changed the scope to a more modern-looking and smaller scope, possibly to make the Hunting Revolver less of a liability. In total, it adds 2,500 caps to the cost, but the Ranger Sequoia is still more accurate than the modified one, so it really depends on your usage of the base weapon in your playthroughs, as if it's an improvement, because otherwise the Ranger Sequoia is just straight better. Now, next up on the modified lineup is the GRA 12.7mm SMG, which can be found in the same vendor inventories as the Hunting Revolver, Same with the mods. It shares the same stats with the original one, and will cost you the same 5,100 caps to buy, from full condition. Now, this one has 3 mods, as one is shared with the base 12.7mm, but they are 2 different items. The base game mod is a silencer, but the GRA mod is a suppressor. This suppressor still silences the weapon, but the base game silencer can't go on the GRA SMG, and vice versa. It's an important distinction to make because this will cost you a lot, at 2,800 caps. Now, for that price, you do get a powerful suppressed automatic, but you do have to be careful as it could just be thrown away. Another thing to note is that the base version is 2,750 caps, while the GRA one is 2,800 caps. Now, the next one is a stacked magazine, which for most guns you'd assume doubles the magazine or something like that, but this one only increases the capacity to 21 to 27, and it does have a visual increase in the size and thickness of the magazine. Now, it costs 2,200 caps and does increase the sustained DPS by about 28% for the same reason as the Hunting Revolver. And also like the Hunting Revolver, the last mod decreases spread. And this one is a laser sight, a simple one. It drops the high spread from a 2 to a 1.6 for only 2,600 caps. It is a reduction of 20%, which is less than most other spread bonuses, but it is nice. Now, for a fully kitted out 12.7mm SMG, it will cost you a lot of money, totaling, at 100% of its value, 12,700 caps, which to me only appeals to die-hard 12.7mm users. While the mods are useful, especially the suppressor, the other 2 mods, which are the GRA specific ones, feel underpowered for the cost for sure. But enough of these common weapons, now for the unique offerings. First off is the Sleepy Time with 2 Ys, the unique 10mm SMG. Appearing only in the inventory of the Vintatron, provided nothing glitched out, it occupies kind of a strange place. It is a silenced and tuned 10mm SMG, costing an expensive, but not for the 12.7mm SMG users, 8,250 caps base, and is always bought at perfect or near perfect condition. It does more damage, fires more shots per second than the base SMG, does 3 more damage for those keeping track at home for a total of 22, which is the same as the 10mm pistol, which also can be silenced. However, being an SMG, it fires way more shots. In this case, it fires 1 more shot per second than the 10mm SMG for a total of 10 shots per second. This is a small buff, but in VATS, it's way more important as it makes VATS more efficient. Since it costs the same 22 AP as the 10mm SMG, but instead of firing 3 shots, it fires 4, which in VATS makes it 1.5 times better, when you account for the increased damage as well. Now, it also comes with a fully expanded magazine, the same as a fully modded 10mm SMG. Now, the spread is the point where it starts to diverge, as it's only a 0.5 reduction from the base 10mm SMG, not the full point spread reduction as the modded version is. It also has a higher crit chance multiplier, which equates to a normal ×1 multiplier over the course of a second, which blows the normal 10mm SMG out of the water. Now, while it is expensive, the benefit of an internally suppressed SMG firing a nice big bullet is very useful, and it's far cheaper than the fully modded 12.7mm SMG, and only a bit more than the base game silenced 12.7mm SMG. So it gets my approval for sure as a great addition to the game, especially since the ammo is pretty cheap and nothing else really fires it until Lonesome Road. And now is the next unique, the 12.7mm pistol, the Little Devil, which is bought for Mick of Mick and Ralph's, unless Mick dies, in which case the unkillable Vindotron will sell it. Now, compared to the Sleepy Time, the Little Devil is very expensive, costing 16,000 caps, which is 4 times the cost of a standard 12.7mm pistol. It does do 12.5% more damage at 45 versus 40, and can fire 3.25 shots per second instead of 2 3/4 shots. It is also like that gun, sporting a great crit chance multiplier at ×2, and a rock bottom AP cost of 15 with a spread of only 0.9. Now, to offset the huge cost, it's slightly more durable at 595 shots, which is 200 more than the base pistol, but not 4 times as much. It also has a higher strength requirement of 8, as it weighs less than the 12.7mm, because it's 3.2 versus 3.5, so more recoil would be transferred to the hand. And while it is a holdout weapon with no requirements, it can't be silenced like the base 12.7mm SMG, so it sits in a bit of a strange position. Also, due to not being flagged as an improved holdout weapon as well, it can only be bought in if you choose the not 50 sneak option. The lack of a silencer but making it a holdout weapon makes the weapon really a paradox and not know where to go. And the sky-high cost makes it almost impossible to recommend, especially with such a low durability. You will be spending a lot of repair kits on this little devil. Not a recommended purchase. Now, finally, enough with the weapons, now for the ammo. The 9mm and the 12.7mm added ammo types have the same stats, so we'll cover them together. They both require the hand-loading perk, as said before, and have to be made by the courier. They are the Jacketed Hollow Point, or JHP ammunition, and they cost more lead and powder than standard rounds, and require a higher repair skill. These have slightly lower damage multipliers than the Hollow Points at 1.65 times instead of 1.75 times, but instead of tripling the enemy's armor, it only doubles the enemy's armor. In most cases, it is a significant improvement, especially with the lower damage of the 9mm weapons. The 12.7mm weapons do benefit from it, but only against totally unsuitable targets for the standard hollow points. Now, the shotgun ammo is where it gets special. It has a huge variety of ammo added for many scenarios. The simplest group of ammo is the 30-aught buck for 20 gauge and the 4-aught buck for 12 gauge. They cost the same as the standard ammo. These ammo types concentrate the damage into 3 and 4 shots respectively. While this would be a great mixture of more damage per projectile and still being able to hit in a spread, the standard X-aught buck does only 1 times damage, so they're incredibly niche because they do not have the 20% damage that standard ammo has. However, with the handload perk, 3-aught and 4-aught buck can be turned into magnum rounds, which have the same 30% damage increase, -2 enemy DT, and 15% more wear of usual magnum rounds, but concentrate the damage into those 3 and 4 shots. They have way more use than the standard 30-aught or 4-aught buck. Against heavily armored enemies, this ammo is exceptionally useful and outperforms normal ammo for enemies with high DT, although it loses out to slug rounds against things like T51B power armor and similar. The only downside is that the X-aught magnum rounds have to be crafted by hand with the perk, but they cost only a little bit more than standard magnum rounds and crafting materials. Now, the next ammo type shared between the two calibers, which might actually overseed the 3-aught and 4-aught buck, is the Pulse Slug. It costs 4 caps for 20 gauge and 5 caps for 12 gauge. It does 70% of the damage and has the same 35% normal spread with 1 projectile as normal slugs. However, while it does lose out on 30% of its damage, it does do an extra 50 flat damage to robots and an extra 50 flat 25 to enemies in power armor. In places with lots of robots, like the Old World Blues DLC or Repcon, these can make all the difference, especially things like sentry bots, who barely react to standard buckshot. Now, that's the info 20 gauge added rounds, but the 12 gauge have 2 more choices, the Dragon's Breath round and the Flechette round. Both of these ammos do 90% damage, but after that, they do very different things. As most people know from the internet or various memes, the Dragon Breath round turns shotguns into mini flamethrowers, and in this case, enemies hit with these rounds take 8 fire damage for 5 seconds, which as I understand it, punches through armor and is only reduced by fire resistance, which is a nice effect for only 4 caps per round, but it does not stack with itself. Now, you do combine it with the Pyromaniac perk, I think applies. It can be very powerful for room clearing as you hit a bunch of weaker enemies with these flaming pellets. Now, the Flechette round, a little bit more different. It is the ultimate armor-piercing round for shotguns. The damage is concentrated into 5 projectiles, and enemy DT is reduced by a flat 6, which is a steal at only 3 caps per round. All these new ammo types, combined with the old ammo types, had a lot of utility to shotguns, and the mostly forgotten genre of gun do get new life with these ammos and can shine in almost all situations with the right combo. However, they can also become very dark and worthless in the wrong combinations. Now to conclude the shotguns, pistols, and SMG editions by GRA, the Little Devil, piece of trash. Sleepy Time can be a mainstay for a lot of builds. Shotgun ammo, amazing. Now, GRA does get into its own with bigger guns, especially energy weapons. The pistols are really neglected, except for the one shiny piece of kit, and unfortunately, it's not really worth it. So, see you next time whenever I wrap up another series of my normal episodes with the GRA finisher.